You're listening to the Devil Dog Talk Show.
This show contains explicit material and is recommended for ages 18 and older for mature audiences only. But hey, it's the internet.
Let me go ahead and ask Doogie what's up on this, and what's your working experience, and how did you get into growing cannabis or just hemp or anything actually? Because I love growing jalapenos and tomatoes just as much.
Right. No, it's all the cannabis tends to be like the start for a lot of people. A lot of people in our generation, and they move on from that.
Yeah, it's the starter crop.
A passion. Yeah.
What a starter crop to build, build off of.
It's a beautiful thing, man. It's definitely a beautiful thing, we grow up thinking, gardening and stuff is like a woman's job, right? Some people do, but then we move on and see this plant. Like, this plant is cool. It's an amazing plant, so diverse, so many smells and so many effects, and it looks so different.
Yeah, all the different strains.
But it's also, it's you get what you put in.
Yeah.
And it's a sacred plant that, I feel really feeds off who you are. We connect on a different level. Whether it be the energy, right, or just knowing your intentions.
That's really
kind of
cool
the whole
approach.
It's the old hippie kind of original counterculture, original growers way of looking at the plant. Is that it's like one of those things that you don't start weighing out, you don't start estimating how much you're going to yield and how much you're going to make off it, because then you're in it for the completely wrong reason. You're just in it to cash crop off it and make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
And I believe the plant knows that. And I believe just the whole culture knows that. And we have all those people jumping in now over the last 5 to 10 years. 5 years maybe, mainly. All these people just see it as money and want to get in on it. And they don't understand who we are at the core, and who the people that used to grow, that when it was illegal, you would actually do jail time, go to prison for years and years and years.
Yeah, for a single joint. Yeah.
For a single joint, let alone growing, having a full house blowing out with plants,
Yeah.
And it's it made us so only a certain type of people did it. We had to be secretive about it. We had our closed net community, our small circle of friends, and that was awesome back then.
Yeah, and that was just a short time ago. I mean, it does sound like we're reminiscing about some ancient times there, but it's not so far gone. I think it's beautiful that you have that perspective of it, because namely, one of my most recent guests, Madison Margolin, and her perspective in their magazine that they do is called Double Blind Magazine, is that going back to the roots of the culture of not just cannabis, but that journey of self-exploration. And
yeah, man, you start getting into all the other things. We start off with weed, and then what does it end to?
Right.
Would it be experimenting with LSD or mushrooms or DMT or ayahuasca? The whole culture of we understand there's these plants that work for us, or that work with us synergistically,
Yeah.
that we're supposed to use, and they're supposed to get our own benefits from it. There's so many plants out there, so many things out there that it's special effects on us. They're just there for us for their own certain way, one certain reason.
That's so cool. Now, when you started out in growing, and I mean for your own personal self, did you have any kind of ailments, or was it more of just a spiritual thing? And I don't say ailments because sometimes the soul can be, screaming out it's hurt, and there's things that we got to, focus on spiritually. But was there something that, drew you into cultivation more so than just philosophy? Was there a physiological need, or maybe a desire to get more independent or be more independent in that way?
Kind of. That was later on. In the beginning, I've been smoking weed since I was like 14, and pretty much did it because my friends were doing it. And then as I look back over the last few years on why I started and why I got into it, is really it's a weird reason. Is that I like to check out. I didn't like to remember. I had a lot of depression and things that I didn't want to think about anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of blanked me out. It kind of got me in my own head. And that's how it was for, the first few years. And then of course I couldn't afford it. So I'm like, hey, I might as well try selling it.
Yeah.
So I started selling it and, to friends and then it worked out from there. You start with smoking it, then you start selling a little bit and they're like, okay, what's the next step? You start growing it, right? You start growing in your closet or your friend's closet. And then you expand to a couple more lights and a couple more lights. And then I was just, I was hooked. I'm an independent person. I'm pretty introvert.
Nice.
So it worked out for me. You always you work independently, and it's just kind of just me, and all my my friends did it too, and we just connected. But then after a while, you start giving it to people that it helps.
Yeah. And
they come back like, dude, this worked amazing for me. Whether it be stomach problems, or I worked with this lady that had Lyme disease that it helped tremendously. She was always in pain, always hurting. I had one friend, he had the worst speech impediment you've ever seen. Super stuttering. He could not complete a sentence whatsoever. And when I gave him the right stuff, whether it be a nice heavy indica, something that would slow him down, he would take a couple dabs and boom, within minutes, complete full sentences without stuttering.
Nice.
It's like, wow, like this completely changed his life.
Dude,
but
that is beautiful.
But you give him a sativa, and that sativa makes him stutter even worse. It makes the mind just race and race and race.
Yes. Oh,
and that's
man.
And it starts it's just kind of how weed is, man. It's so diverse. Depending on what's in it, it's so hybridized over the last 30 years, 40 years, more hybridized than any plant ever known. We have so many different varieties, so many different smells from all over the spectrum. Stuff that smells sweet like blueberries or oranges or bananas, all the way to stuff that smells like dog shit. Like, this is fucking rotten, dude. And that's the stuff you want, though. It's like you start looking at those chem dogs, or
cat pisses, cheetah pisses.
The
right
cat
now.
piss,
yeah.
Yes. Oh man. And most people smell that anywhere else, like, oh, that's gone bad. That's nasty. Weed is the only culture. It's like, wow, this smells amazing. Let me smoke this. Like, what is,
Yeah, it has the
how's
most
this gonna
dankest
taste?
phenotype scent to it, and you're like, oh my god. What is the profile on these terpenes here, friend? Man.
And then it's like one person can grow one strain, and it ain't gonna be the same as the next person growing that same exact strain.
See, I've noticed that a lot about we call it strains, and I don't know if you get into the science of things. I mean, I do. I rooted into it from a medical background, and so when I was, this is fucking years ago now, in 2015 is where I really dove into the culture of cannabis, going to the Cannabis Cup, meeting Super Troopers, meeting Sue Sisley. She's really pushing the entire PTSD treatment with cannabis for veterans. And, there's a lot, you brought it up briefly, you use this, you use that, you felt this, you felt that. And I got into it at a time where, I would say it was a cusp, and you mentioned it, like a turning point of legitimization of entrepreneurship within the cannabis culture. I really, really experienced it at that Cannabis Cup. I don't think there was a happy person there. That whole event there in Colorado 5 years ago now, and I mean it because it was so much itemized purchasing of ticketing, the way that they had a Comic-Con presentations. They really monetized the shit out of it to the point where it devalued the culture, or I should say the experience. Many people that I met at that time, they were just like, I just can't believe this is how it's going down. It was one of the worst Cannabis Cups they'd been to. And these are the people I've been talking to for a few years that were just super enthused about me being there. that this is the year. The AMA Act or the AMUA Act was going on. And I can hear it already. I'm so glad you reacted that way.
that ruined the culture even more.
It did. And so after that experience and after meeting a few people, a few that of which are no longer with us, Mr. Roger Martin was one of the greatest persons I met. He did veteran grown and veteran developed cannabis-based companies a lot before his passing, and he was able to donate just hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of actual product to veterans in need all throughout Colorado Springs.
Beautiful.
And yeah, it is. It's about that culture, that way of thinking, and that building on, like you said, that hippie theory of, helping others.
Mm-hmm.
So after that experience, I came home. I was super enthused, super duper open about the whole experience. And I did not count on, Southern Californian veterans or, just regular people to really kind of say, oh, you shouldn't talk about cannabis, friend. That's not that open anymore. That's not open right now yet. And then the literal next year, that AMA Act or AMUA Act, Adult Marijuana Use Act, everybody in my family called me and says, hey, what is this? I go, don't vote yes on it. It's kind of like that gas tax. You vote yes, and that means you want more restrictions. And when it kicked over, I noticed a huge trend shift in cannabis and cannabis growing and the specific product types and, how vendors distribute now. And it's so regulated to the point where it's forced back into the black market era of, hey, homie, hook up this, homie, hook up that. But also it really kind of strangulated the entrepreneurial spirit that we saw pre-AMUA Act. So, I mean, I know I'm going off a little tangent there, talking about economics, but to focus more on the growing, I also noticed, like what you were saying, it shifted from the quality to the quantity, and we're seeing more of these high-yielding strains that aren't necessarily like, very good quality. You can go out to a local dispensary and, the pricing is insane right now, especially with the taxation. But it's just so interesting to talk to somebody that understands and sees, the quality of strains shift, the interest of philosophy shift. And from your perspective, I'm always trying to gain an expert grower's perspective on, well, then how do you become more independent, right? As a patient. And for you, personally, how would you say, if somebody's intrigued and just starting out, what is the easiest way to get your toes wet, I would say, in the personal independent grow market?
There's good groups like on Facebook. I'm part of the Probiotic Farmers Alliance, which is it's a good group of people that want to grow high quality cannabis, stuff that's clean, stuff that's sustainable, stuff that's grown as naturally as possible and as beneficial as possible. Because what we've learned is that you grow, I'll say organically, I don't like, that doesn't mean much, but growing in a living soil where the plant has a symbiotic relationship in the soil with all the microbes and everything involved in a natural setting, it's able to kind of simplify things as well as give yourself a clean product. Like with this whole legalization, right? The AMA, you get so many more people growing because the penalties of getting caught doing it is less. So you get all these other people in it. Well, these other people in it are just growing cheaply. They're throwing a bunch of bottled nutrients on it from General Hydroponics or House and Garden or something like that. And the product just doesn't come out very good. It's like if you were going to go to a store, to your grocery store, and get this conventional bell pepper, okay? And then you go to a farmer's market from a local grower that's growing organically in a sustainable probiotic manner. It's just so much better, right? So what I would say, your steps would be first try to find growers that you want to grow like, people that you respect. There's this guy on Instagram called J Plant Speaker. and he's a very he's a good grower. He's very organic and natural, and he always produces a high quality product. He's a medicinal grower. There's other people, like if you're in Oregon, you got Geek Farms. Geek Farms, they just grow just straight living soil. There's also, if you want to support a couple of good shops and big people in the industry now, you have Jeremy Silva of Build a Soil. He has I believe a couple shops in Colorado, and he's leading the way for organic growers in cannabis. And right behind him, or right alongside him, is Tad Hussey with Kiss Organics. I believe he's in Washington, and his dad is one of the he was at the forefront of compost teas and all of that like 20, 30 years ago. And those two people alone, they understand what it means to create clean cannabis using clean products, clean amendments, knowing exactly everything you put into your soil, whether it be bone meals or fish meals or seed meals or worm castings or compost, knowing exactly the quality of that product and why we need to be putting it into our soil.
See, and that's something very interesting that you bring up. And I mean, interesting as I could make that appealing to somebody who doesn't really or may not be exposed to that type of culture or dynamic of farming in general. Again, I have a background in science and laboratory sciences and medicine. And so when I hear things about the microbiome and, the full spectrum of what's happening, not only within the soil, but within the control modalities of what's happening with the plant, right? We get into a science type approach of compartmentalization and such. Now, when you bring up like farmers alliances, such like that, things that are available for people to see and emulate, it's kind of like having, well, then why is this important type of a conversation? That's what I love to play, is the devil's advocate. Well, it's important because, in case anybody's wondering, right? When you're having a product that you're ingesting, right, especially for food consumption or medicinal consumption, the things and byproducts that are made when you consume it or utilized for either pest control, etc., they're more enriched in environments that have a full symbiosis or a synergistic relationship in the environment, right? And it's funny because we can then correlate that to society and community, et cetera, et cetera. We get better human beings when our foundation is set a lot better and our roots are developed better and fed better and, et cetera. And when we have these smaller components like mycelia and the microbiomes that go into creating a very active and fertile soil, and then we have the plant itself, right? The cannabis itself, it's relatively, I wouldn't say a new thing, but it's a new thing for the majority of people in a societal normative way to kind of willfully and openly discuss now. And I think that's not only, of course, great things for cannabis, but I think that's great things for humanity, because when we talk about food sources, product availability, farmers markets, and organic farming, what we're actually saying is better farming, right? A lot of people get upset when I say that. The difference between these I call them what are they called? Miracle grow bag operations, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. And I was thinking about this and where I go with this, and that you talked about health, right? Mm-hmm. And getting health from growing. Cannabis is what really sparked my interest in this, and that cannabis, you need to put in really good inputs, and you need to dial in this plant to create a 10 out of 10 product. It's that 10 out of 10 is a world of a difference between 10 out of 10 and 8 out of 10. The 8 out of 10 plant grew, you got buds off it, you got something that you could smoke, and maybe you had some nice effects from it. And that's like most people's food, or how they look at life, right? But if you want that 10 out of 10 out of life, you need to give it all these inputs. And that has a lot to do with your fruits and vegetables. And like you said, your microbiome, man, your gut microbiome is, we're under attack, man. We've been under attack for the last 50 years, start of industrialization and this way of farming.
Mm-hmm.
It's this whole way of farming of how cheap can I grow a shitload of vegetables? I don't care what it tastes like. I don't care what it does for the person. All I care is about how am I going to make more money? And it's just carried over, like everything in life now is, all of your phones, whether they last a year, you buy all these things, they don't last long because they're just trying to make a bunch of money off it. And I think this is what we have to change. This is what the, you want to say the man or the people in charge, this is what they've done to us.
The hierarchical authority.
Whoever it may be, the elites or whatever you want to call it, they've dumbed us down with our food, with our water, with our pharmaceuticals, with our desires in life, distracting us with things that are meaningless, celebrities and all these things. And they've taken us away from the land and the soil. We filled it up with concrete. We started spraying, killing all these weeds because we don't like what they look like, and killing all these bugs because we don't want these bugs around, and killing with all these chemicals, everything that's killing the soil, killing the microorganisms in the soil. They're really, the microbes rule everything around me, everything around us.
Yeah.
And inside of us, honest man, we're more microbes than we are cells.
That's true.
And it's absolutely true. And it's amazing. We don't think about these things anymore. We may like throw some probiotics in us, from a pill or from a kombucha or something like that. But we need so much more. We need to feed it better.
Yeah, that thing.
Just like the soil. So what I learned about soil is that when you treat soil right, when you're treating the soil, you're not growing a plant, you're growing soil, and you're growing a vast, diverse microorganism population that has a synergistic effect, relationship with the plants and the soil, breaking on this nutrient, breaking on this one, making this one available. The plant's talking back to the microbes saying, I want this, you feed this, you eat this. And it's just creating these plants with high phytonutrients, high phytochemicals, terpenes that come out of nowhere. They're like, wow, this smells amazing. Where the hell did this come from? Well, you started treating your soil right. You started balancing the nutrients. You started having the synergistic effects. And that's what we need to bring into our vegetable gardens too. I got a nice little garden at my house, but I'm trying to get bigger and bigger because I think that's one of the biggest things we need to change about society is the quality of food we're getting. We make our food better. We feed ourselves better. We start cleaning up all these diseases, all these problems. We start cleaning up our brain, understanding that we need these things to hit that 10 out of 10. This is what we have to do in order for us to have a chance of making a big change in this world and having the turn,
Exactly.
Where things start getting better and more for the good and more for the love. And we need these things. And, working in the soil, you get a probiotic and intake. You start digging your hands in the soil. You start eating it. You start accidentally getting it in your mouth, whatever, on your hands. Don't wash your hands right away. You got all these amazing microorganisms that are coming in us from a good, healthy soil, right? And there's a lot of things that we don't have. What are we doing now? We're washing our hands every 30 minutes.
Oh my God.
We're sterilizing ourselves even more.
Yes.
We're taking all these antibiotics. It's like,
yeah, we're sterilizing ourselves.
We're not a sterile people.
Animals aren't meant to be sterile.
Humans developed for hundreds of thousands of years. We've been developing ever since that one fungal spore, fucking millions of years ago, and it just came about. And we've never been sterile up until these last years.
I agree. And that's something that a lot of, okay. So again, I love and I hate having the background that I have in laboratory sciences because a lot of lab techs and scientists, doctors, people that I've met, they're wonderful, wonderful souls, but they have this fixated perspective of germs and sterility as health. Germs bad, sterility health. And I'm like, sure, in an operating room, for sure. Okay? Worked in operating rooms.
Absolutely.
When I'm actually testing for a very specific thing, a cell or an organism or a virus, whatever it is, sterility is my best friend when I'm compartmentalizing. But at the root base of it, when we sterilize things, we're noticing in all compartments, we don't know what the fuck it is we need to be focused on. So when we sterilize stuff, like when cannabis came out in a big way with CBD, and everybody was like, oh my God, CBDs, they demonize shit. I don't know why people do that with the duality of existence, right? We demonize the things we don't understand, and we praise the things that we do for a profit, but only as long as it serves a profit. So when CBD came out as an industry and economy, we saw CBD plants, CBD products, CBD from everywhere, mainly from China, synthetic CBD, blah, 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 blah.
And even at that, isolated CBD.
Exactly. But when we do that, and THC as well, when we started doing more isolates of THC, we forget about TCA, CBDG, and CBG, and all the different stuff that goes down into the construct of what this plant, cannabis, provides. It's just like 400 different things thus far, to include terpenes, right? Terpenes include, they do different things too. There's a whole entourage effect, right? So I always found it fascinating, okay, when we start isolating things to the point of, no, that thing's beneficial and that's not. And I'm like, but it's the same plant. It's the same entourage effect of what we're trying to cumulatively cause. And when we start, I would say, pinholing specific things like CBD or THC, and there's only two viable entrepreneurial concepts coming out of a potential of 400, I go, why are we going right back to the pharmaceutical approach of this potential modality, right?
Right.
We don't do it with things like supplements, right? We could be like, here's fish oil. But if I went down the litany of chemical makeup within fish oil or fish oil products, oh my God, we could sit here for hours and hours and hours, okay?
Right. Yeah. In fact, I mean, that's just what Western pharmaceuticals, Western philosophy is. We take, all of our medications, they all come from bacteria or plants, but they're in an isolated form. Like, oh, we found that this chemical is the one that did it. Well, you know what? Whatever created all of this gave us this plant in a hole for a reason. Why are we separating this one chemical out of everything else that this amazing plant can give us?
Patents.
Exactly. That's the only way to patent it. We can't patent a plant unless we genetically modify it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like we already, the government, GW Pharmaceuticals, they came out with Sativex, right? They came out with their synthetic CBD and their synthetic THC. But you know what? It didn't do shit for anybody.
Not at all, which is remarkable, isn't it? Because if you do isolate these things that people find as necessary to fixate on, right? We'll just fuck philosophy for a minute. Just talk about specific, right? Isolating two things, CBD, THC. We've isolated it, we've synthesized it, and it does not produce the same statistical variance that we would wish was represented in this modality, right? Or pharmaceutical. Yes. And I go, okay, so then therefore what we are doing is not correct science, because I would get hyper political about COVID-19, but it's just fucking wasteful sometimes. My point is, when we become hyper focused on one specific analytical variance versus others, and we don't correspond to that synergistic relationship of what is represented, then we're missing something. Right? We're missing maybe even potentially the answer to the problem that we're looking for. Right. And I again and again, I go back to, my science background, my medical history, and I go, okay, so if we have organic plants, we have organic medicines, and we have either inhalation through combustion, which still doesn't represent the same as other combustibles, right? And we look at ingestion through modalities such as just raw use, which I love, which is like, a juice or a salad out of the plant leaves. I did a fruit freeze dried cannabis juice leaf one time. Nice. How did that come out?
Yeah, awesome.
Was it tasty?
My stomach had a little tough time with that. I don't do a lot of juicing, not enough as I should.
Oh man.
But I gave it to my friend with Crohn's disease.
It helped
to try to help out with that.
Good. Yeah, because when I first got into growing, that was the first thing I tried was, how do I use 100% of this plant? And what different modalities can I get from different stages of this plant growth? Is it ingestive, either fruit, meaning the flower, and you decarboxylize and you all the different extractive into an MCT, so it's bioavailable, etc. Or do you do a whole plant with the leaf, the vegetative leaf, and see where that gets you? So studies have shown if you're CBD hype, right? CBD, you eat that raw vegetable and you're actually consuming more CBD than anything that's bioavailable. So you juice that with a little bit of a fat, like an MCT oil, dude, you're getting like thousands of milligrams of CBDs off of just a little bit of the plant extra, or I should say the plant. So when I was going through all these different treatments of medications and stuff for, you know, my personal progress and health, I didn't respond well to anything. As soon as I started juicing my plant leaves, my knees felt better, my back felt better, my neck felt better, my attitude was better, my demeanor and perception was better. I started getting off all of these different medications, tons of horrible medications, shit that I would be like, look, bro, if you have this rheumatoid arthritis, if you have fibromyalgia, if you got whatever it is,
My friend does.
don't take that shit they're giving you. There was a drug, it's called Lyrica.
Yeah.
And it's like gabapentin, but it's a little bit stronger. It didn't do shit. Like as far as nerve pain, musculofacial pain, not a goddamn thing in comparison. And I was also on morphine. I was up to 120 milligrams a day. The VA and everybody was telling me, dude, we might kill you because it's like at that dose. I was like, cool.
Oh my God.
Thanks, VA. And then I was like, look, me and the wife sat down. I was like, you know, it's okay that they're saying this. I kind of know it. I've already gotten off all these different nerve pain medications, antidepressants, sleep aid medications, all this different stuff. And I was still doing the morphine because of the pain. And I told the wife, I was like, but I don't want to fucking die in my sleep. Okay. I don't want to wake up dead was the joke. And it was like, all right, 120 milligrams a day. That's horrible. Well, the VA, the way they do things in their infinite wisdom was like, cool, you're going to go from 120 milligrams to we ain't giving you shit now because we might create liability. And I was like, cool. So from 120 milligrams a day, we tried to titrate off, and then they transferred me doctors, and that all went to hell. And anybody who's been on or off opiates or, you know, narcotics can tell you how difficult that is. But when I went to cannabis, at the same time, I went to it harder than before, and I started making my own CBD. Just oil, MCT oil with, you know, coconut oil and stems and scraps, whatever I can get my hands on. I would eat that with my coffee in the morning, and I would just put like 1,000 milligrams of oil in my coffee. And in about a month, I didn't want morphine, didn't even think about morphine. And in several months, I was like, you know, it hurts so much more than when I was on morphine, but I don't feel like I did. And then so next month went by. I started talking to my dad about it, my personal experience about getting off of morphine. And he was like, yeah, you're like, it's night and day difference already. My best friend, he was like, bro, you're such an asshole on morphine. I'm like, I bet. I'm kind of an asshole as it is. So we had some good laughs. And then I focused more on cannabis. And then that's what really bit me, I should say, as far as cultivating was I can't afford what the dispensary's offering, you know, not to say that their product's not worth it. But I can't afford that. You know, I'm a disabled veteran, you know, that's my lifestyle. That's what I do. My wife takes care of me. And what I do on my off time is I help people connect to other people. That's what I'm good at. Right. So then I started getting into organic growing when I started learning more about these microbes and microbiome and all these different little additives and shit. I was like, man, this is like a science project. I can get behind this. So then,
right, it's fun.
Yes. Yeah. So as soon as I started doing it more and more, I never looked back. And this was just I think about a year after 2016, 17 is when I was like, I'm never looking back. I'm not going back to pharmaceuticals. I'm not going to try to rectify, you know, the science. I don't want to say agenda, but the Western medicine platform. I'm not going to try and reform that. I think people are a little too fixated on ever letting that waver a little bit. And then mostly was, I just want my wife and my children to know, hey, you don't have to take what people are giving you. You can go out and make your own thing. You know, you can dig a hole, you can buy some soil, you can hit up some great people, you can learn some techniques and little tips and tricks. And that's the last section I wanted to hit you up on a little bit. And then mostly what you get back from the plant isn't just the end fruit, but that journey that took you to get to the end fruit. And, you know, that's my grower little story there. And to focus it back on you, when I see you talking about it on Facebook and stuff, I go, holy fuck, that's where I want to be. You know, that's that. I go, hey, I don't know, Doogie. And I think I accidentally commented on something, or I messaged you once because I misunderstood something, but you're the kindest person about this so far. And I mean it, going, hey, no, don't do that shit. You're going to definitely want to put chicken wire around these motherfuckers because squirrels are a bitch and rats are too.
Right.
Oh, man. You know, but that's the kind of help I think a lot of it's the overlooked issues that I think too many people focus on or not on enough. And it's good community that helps people kind of, you know, wrestle those overlooked issues like good soil. Start out from the roots, you know, good soil, protect your plants, you know, good thinking, good connection, good synergy. And so I wanted to, again, leave it off on your note and say, hey, thank you again for, you know, interviewing a bit, giving us some good information. And if you have any tips and tricks for growers out there or anything that you'd like to publicize or, you know, give a shout out, please do.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'd like to. Thank you for having me on. First of all, it's really surprised me. I love talking about this stuff. I worked at a grocery store for a little bit too. Love teaching people about it. I try to help as many people as I can. But if I were to help somebody, just try to build a relationship with the plant, connect with the plant, love the soil. Try to take after it as best as you can. Keep it full of good compost and minerals, and keep the microbes happy, and just take joy in it. They definitely they feel you. They feel your intent. They feel your emotions. It's a beautiful experience, and hopefully you keep going with more and growing more vegetables and understanding that we should be growing these amazing plants. Everyone should, and just keep going. Follow some good people. Like I said, Jeremy Silva, Tad Hussey. They sell all the products that are sustainable, that are safe to use. They have tons of tips, lots of boards, lots of message board stuff. You know, they got podcasts as well. One of them, Kiss Organics, Cannabis Cultivation Science. It's a really good one to listen to. And just keep doing it. Just understand that you need to grow good, clean cannabis the natural way.
The natural way. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it, man. Thank you for our conversation, and good luck this season in all that you do. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap the show on that.
Internet. Hello. Alltså sen idag hörs när man får då när ni ska jag finna mig kapsen och det är bestämt att jag ska bara shit.
Well, I need to sit.